What's going on, guys? Welcome back to a brand new episode of Dieting from the Inside Out. I'm your host, Jared Hamilton, if you're new here, and I am so excited to be doing this again. I do apologize that my consistency with some of these episodes have not been the greatest lately. No good specific reason, just things have been crazy busy in a really, really good way, and I just have not been prioritizing them the way that I should have been. But now here's the cool part. We are about to do some really cool stuff with the podcast. So a lot of the, what I would call the bigger rocks that have been the majority of my priorities lately are now completed or have been moved and sorted or delegated to where now we can do some really, really cool stuff with the podcast and be way more consistent and get some really cool guests in here and do some awesome stuff. So first and foremost, I really appreciate you guys being so patient with me. I know I've been getting some messages about like, yo, it's been like a month and a half, 2 months. Like when are we getting another episode? So I apologize about that, but now some really cool stuff is about to happen. So today is a solo episode. So you're stuck with me, no guests in the house today, but I would also love to know, like those of you that like message me and write in and things like that, if there are any guests you would like to see, I would love to make that happen. Like if, you know, like let's say the majority of you, of the listeners here, like if you guys are like, no, we really want this person, or we really want this person, or this is what we'd like to see. Well, if enough of you ask for it, then I will do my utmost to make it happen. So I'm really, really, really intrigued on some of your guys' feedback. Like I just want to know, you guys are the listeners. So I want to know what it is you want to see, who it is you want to hear from, what kind of problems do you want to see solved here? Because that's the thing, is the whole reason for this podcast is called Dieting from the Inside Out. So we're all about just giving you the best tools, tactics, and strategies and things that you can implement to truly diet from the inside out and to actually make this weight loss and transformation and overall your own happiness the best it can be. Because as we all know, diet culture sucks, and that at the end of the day, normal weight loss stuff like isn't the actual true root of the problem. You know, you don't come to a podcast called Dieting from the Inside Out where we're talking about binge eating, emotional eating, and meditating, and inner game and mindset strategies and all this stuff when, you know, if the answer was just eat less, move more, and do better, because that's not the answer, right? So that's what we're about, and I would love to get your feedback. So before we get into the nuts and bolts of this show, we do need to give a little bit of a thank you to the sponsors of the show. So right out the gate, big thank you to Flex Pro Meals, longtime supporter and sponsor of the show. And I have been eating their food like crazy, if we're being totally honest. Guys, that's the nice thing, is like the big thing with Flex Pro is, like, at least in my life and the people in clients that take their products in their meals consistently, it's one of those things that at the end of the day, this is all about convenience, right? Like the biggest thing, I was doing a big training the other day on like when people are like, what do I implement first? Where do I start? And my two big rocks are what has the greatest ROI and what has the least amount of friction. That's how you decide what steps to move forward with. And too often having something like Flex Pro or something that really streamlines your meals to where you don't have to think about it. You always have a plan B if, like, you know, you didn't make food, or it's been a crazy day at the office, or kids are being nuts, or you're running around from soccer game to soccer game, or whatever the case is, where you go home and you always have food that tastes good, that you just pop into the microwave, that's in line for your goals, is just a no-brainer, right? That's even on top of it going to be cheaper than going to the drive-through. You see what I mean? So big thank you to Flex Pro. It's just, I love everything about the company, their actual product and service. So it's a no-brainer for them to be a sponsor of the show. So if that's your sort of thing and you're like, okay, maybe I should look into that, I definitely want to save you some money. So in the show notes, you can go to, or just go to their website, flexpromeals.com. But if you use the code Hamilton Trained, you know, like the old name of the podcast, Hamilton Trained, it'll save you 20%. So you actually get to save a good amount of money. But then now, our second sponsor of the show, huge thank you to First Form. I'm actually wearing one of their t-shirts right now. You know, fun fact, supplements aside, their clothes are some of my absolute favorites. Like, people ask me all the time, they're like, Jared, is all you own First Form? And I go, of course not. But when it comes to like just straight up athletic apparel, like with t-shirts that are comfortable, that fit you well, that are cool, with like, they're literally my favorite shorts of all time, like my favorite like sports or basketball shorts ever. And just across the board, they're like, the supplements aside and like those products aside, I don't know how they do it or who they use, but the clothing alone is just well worth it to me, that by itself. So, but when it comes to things like supplements and really streamlining and fixing those areas in your goals, like, things like protein powder or pre-workout or vitamins and filling the gaps is what I like to call it. There's literally no better. You're going to be hard pressed to find anyone or another company that can do that in the way that First Form does. Everything from the quality of the product to the accuracy of the product to where it's made, how they conduct business, how they handle things in the company from like an ethical and moral standpoint. You just can't get better than First Form. So, and because of that, I do want to offer you guys, my listeners, a special like free shipping link. So if you go to the description, you use my link, not only does it support your boy, but it also will give you some free priority shipping. And I'm going to take a drink of water real quick, because I could feel like cough coming on. So, and the cool thing, First Form actually did this. I'm super excited about it. I brought one up here so I could show it on the YouTube video. First Form just dropped their energy drink, and I'm so freaking excited, guys, because to me, like when it comes to this, like I've never been like the massive coffee person, but I just always have liked like a good 0-calorie energy drink. I've always enjoyed drinking them, and a lot of times I would start my day with them, especially leading up until like I've been getting my testosterone fix. I've really needed one because my testosterone was tanked. But First Form basically came out with their competitor to like all the big brand sport like energy drinks, like against like Bang, Reign, Monster, all of those. They came out with their version, and it's just got better ingredients in general, but it's not quite as stemmed down. It's 200 milligrams of caffeine. So it's not quite as like, oh fuck, I don't want 350 or whatever the amounts are currently. But the cool thing is, guys, I'm telling you, I cannot believe how this shit tastes. It's literally like 9.5, 10 out of 10s. It's ridiculous. I've only had 2 of the flavors so far. I've had their Orange Sunrise. It literally tastes like orange soda, like Sunkissed. But then I've had their citrus one, and it tastes exactly like Sprite. So it tastes great. It's great energy, and I love my caffeine. So they just dropped that as a new product, and I know everyone that I've talked to that's tried it is in love with it. So nothing else. If you drink energy drinks all the time, go order a case, because it'll be way better for you, and you'll feel better than like drinking some of the other stuff on the market. So anyway, enough of the sponsor stuff. Let's get into the nuts and bolts of the show. So I was actually sitting down thinking like, okay, what should we talk about? What do I want to get into today? And now with the show right now, we've got a lot of new listeners, and I think we haven't had a good like what I would call a good fundamentals talk in a minute. And I think it is really important to talk about the concept of like in this world of weight loss and transformation and dieting from the inside out, we need to talk about like what I call the fat loss fundamentals, because at the end of the day, if you aren't aware of like the fundamentals of the thing you're trying to get better at, it's no wonder you're going to struggle. Does that make sense? So this is why today's episode, we're going to get into let me make sure that's what I have in my notes. Yeah, my big 4 fat loss fundamentals. What's funny is I actually have this big PDF guide that I made. It's just a free guide. I'll even throw it in. I made it in Canva. I'll throw the PDF link in the podcast description if you want to check that out, or that way you can have like this, like each fundamental is like a 1-page thing. So that way you could just download it and keep it and like go back to it if you want, if you really like this kind of content. But I've just found that when I do these fundamentals talks, it really helps bring a lot of perspective. So you realize, oh, weight loss doesn't have to be this big deal. Oh, maybe I should be focusing less on, calories and cardio and strength training till I bleed. And maybe I should focus on some of these other things that just inadvertently make fat loss happen. So I just figured with where things are at right now with some of the new listeners, it would be a good idea to have what I call my fundamentals talk. So if you're watching the YouTube video, you will see me going back and forth with my notes. And subtle plug, if you have not checked out the YouTube, I publish all podcast episodes, solo and interviews on my YouTube. So definitely you'll want to go check that out. Just go to youtube.com/Jared Hamilton, or that link will be in the description as well. And this is where we can get into a lot of the really cool stuff. So if you prefer to watch your podcast versus just listen to it, because I low key have this goal of I want to like, one of my big goals, like outside of just like coaching, is I really want to build the podcast as something really, really massive in and of itself. So that's some of the stuff that we're working on. And I'm really excited to really lean into that and really making that happen. So for those of you that are here along the way, and those that have been here since day one, like, man, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you and the fact that you've been here and seen all of this. So, all right, let's get into the fundamentals. So at the end of the day, there are 4 fundamentals, because here's what we have to do. We have to simplify everything. If you've been around my ecosystem for very long, you've heard me talk about how simple is what's scalable and fancy always fails, and how everything has to be ungodly simple. So that's what these fundamentals are about. And these fundamentals aren't just like, oh yeah, just calorie deficit, just protein. Like, yeah, of course that is part of it, but there's so many bigger and deeper things that go into the fundamentals conversation of like where to start, what should you focus on, and how to actually do this the right way. Because to be honest, most people that comes across my stuff, like right now, have been doing this for a long time, like been dieting for several years, on and off, yo-yoing, struggling. And I'm not okay with that. I'm all about you living your best life, thriving, and this game not sucking so much. So hopefully this will help. All right, let's get into it. Fundamental number 1 is expectations. Right now, here's why expectations are so important. Because if expectations at the end of the day, guys, govern an experience. Right? Because it's not a matter of me like just saying, oh, here's the magic plan, but like how that plan coincides with your exact expectations. Like we see people every single day, like in my DMs and in emails and things like that, where they're actually like crushing it. But because their expectations are fucked, they don't think they're crushing it. I've seen so many people who are losing like a pound a week consistently quit because they thought they should have been down 30 pounds in 30 days. Like, how crazy is that? Because their expectations are off. They literally are crushing it. They're losing a pound a week. That's amazing fat loss progress. That's fast is what I consider that. But because some Yahoo told them they should be losing 30 pounds in 30 days, they think that what they're doing isn't good enough. And that's like, no, that's terrible. That's doing fantastic. That's terrible advice, whoever told you that. So part of this game is expectations, because your expectations govern an experience. And that's where we tie meanings to so many times. So a bunch of this stuff, that's why number 1 is expectations. So let's talk about some of these expectations as you're approaching your journey, that I'm hoping like you should shoot me a message and tell me if this is new information to you, or if you're like, oh, I had no idea that was a thing, or okay, that was right. So let's talk about this. So here's just a list off the top of my, like I have written down. So here's some, these are specific expectations that you need to like really lean into. Out the gate, fat loss is supposed to be slow. If you're listening to this podcast, it's probably because you're like interested in weight loss and feeling better and looking better and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, most people think fat loss is supposed to be fast. Or if I had $1 for every time someone said, well, I haven't seen drastic progress yet. I'm like, you're never going to. Have you ever seen your hair grow out drastically from day to day? Of course not. But a month later, you still need a haircut. So out the gate, number 1, fat loss is supposed to be slow. I always say, there's a corny saying I use. I say that fat loss is like pregnancy. Nothing magical happens till about 9 months. It's supposed to be slow. If someone's ever trying to sell you fast fat loss, like hide your credit card. Out the gate, number 2, fast or rapid weight loss is a huge red flag. How many times do you see a program or someone's challenge or something there's someone's selling saying, oh, you're going to get fast fat loss or rapid, this is a rapid weight loss protocol. 9 times out of 10, those are trash. And to be honest, even if they weren't trash, most people's expectations going into them are all off. So that's not a thing. Next, from a more fat loss specifics, 0.5 pound to 1 pound a week lost on average is considered fast progress. So even fast progress is still slow. Understand that if you're like sitting there and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm only losing like a couple pounds a week, or I've only lost 0.5 pound this week. Well, that's a sweet spot. If we have clients consistently losing 2, 3, 4 pounds a week, we literally make them eat more, because that's not okay. We have to bring this down to where it's slow. If you're losing if you're losing weight really, really fast, I can assure you it's not fat, and then it's going to come back even faster. Next, another fully huge expectation. The scale will bounce all over the place, and it's not body fat. You have to understand, like, if you're getting freaked out that the scale, this is a whole nother talk in and of itself, but if you're getting freaked out that the scale is always fluctuating up, down, sideways, or if like you're cool weighing, or if you have a huge issue weighing 200 pounds, but 199 is okay, or you're like, whatever the number is in your head, we've got some bigger issues here, because you don't want your identity tied up in a scale number. There are way more important metrics than that. But most people use the scale wrong as a tool. It's supposed to fluctuate every day. If you weighed your dog every day, it would fluctuate up, down, and sideways based on a million things: water, carbohydrates, salt, medications, bloatedness, that kind of stuff. It's the same thing for you. So it's supposed to go all over the place. You can be losing fat and progressing in the scale spike. It's how the game works. Next, you'll lose motivation. Right? You may be fired up now, but this is where you have to decide you're going to show up for yourself regardless, because motivation will fleet like that. So you can't rely on it, but it's totally normal to lose motivation. Along those lines, next, you'll want to quit, right? Expectations 101, you're going to want to quit. So you need to have some really good reasons right now why you're not going to quit. You need to probably write a letter to yourself, basically telling yourself why you shouldn't quit when the day comes you're going to want to quit. Here's the thing. Wanting to quit is okay. Giving into that desire is what's not okay. Next, extremes are bad. I'm just going to try to fly through these because we got a lot to talk about. Extremes are bad. Any extreme of any sort in this realm is bad. All the carbs, no carbs. Workout every day, not at all. Good food, bad food, all nothing. All that stuff is trash. Your life thrives in balance, so weight loss is the same way. Next, it's normal to have plateaus. Plateaus isn't the sign from God or the universe that you're not meant to get to where you want to be. They're totally normal. There's a saying, anything that grows plateaus, and it's supposed to happen. Next, food is not inherently fat. Food does not inherently store fat. No food does. No food magically stores fat or burns fat. Nothing is inherently good or bad. It's all context driven. Even sugar, even candy, that kind of thing. A lot of you guys that's been around know this stuff, but this is just kind of recapping for a lot of new listeners and from just a fundamental standpoint. Next, you don't have to work out every day or be sore every day. You don't have to do that. Results, like we already talked about, but results are never supposed to be drastic. The last two, you will not lose weight every day. This is a huge one. A lot of people think once you're eating right or in a deficit or whatever, you should be losing weight every single day. And it's not going to work like that. It's going to go all over the place. And lastly, the stupid shit your friends are doing isn't any of your business. So at the end of the day, I don't care what your friends are doing. I don't care about any of that stuff. It's none of your business. Your friend lost 30 pounds in 30 days. Cool. They're probably doing drugs or they're probably throwing up after their meals. Don't go do what they're doing. Okay. So this is part of it. That's why I have the big fundamental number one is expectations. If your expectations are not okay, it doesn't matter what results you're going to get. You're going to be pissed about it and then eventually sabotage, fall off and ruin everything. Get your expectations in check, really in check. The reason I say it like that is because I cannot tell you how many conversations I've had where someone says, I'll be on the phone with someone applying for coaching and they tell me, I say, well, what always happens? And they go, if I don't lose weight in the first couple weeks, I usually fall off. And I go, okay, well, how much weight did you expect to lose in 2 weeks? They're like, oh, nothing. I go, so then why did you quit? Because you didn't lose weight. Do we see the incongruence here? So it's the same thing here. You have to get your expectations in check to ensure that your actions are going to align so you don't make dumb decisions. Because to be honest, in the world of weight loss, if we applied this somewhere else, imagine watching someone find a $20 bill on the ground, getting upset and ripping it up because it wasn't a $100 bill. We would all be bewildered if we saw someone do that. Walk up, oh shit, I found money. Oh, it's only $20, and they rip it up and throw it away. It's wait a second. That doesn't make sense. That's what most of you guys do in the world of weight loss. You get pissed you only lost 1 pound this week when that was fantastic. So you sabotage because you didn't lose 7 pounds this week. Some food for thought. Fundamental number 2, fat loss nutrition in this century. Okay. This is a thing to understand is you have to understand what actual fat loss nutrition looks like in this day and age, because most of you who struggle are living in, I'm not exaggerating, are living with your advice coming from the 50s and 60s. The whole concept of you've got to eat 7 times a day, 6 times a day. The idea that you can only absorb so much protein in one given time. The idea of carbs store fat, or you have to quit eating after such and such time, or the fact that you have to do a diet with its own name. That stuff is literally from the 1950s, the 1960s, and some in the 70s. Well, a lot's happens. They didn't have iPhones back then, but you use an iPhone now. It's the same thing here. So it's one of my biggest pet peeves in the world of this. And most people are struggling because they just are either don't know or refusing to buy into the up-to-date information. So this is why no food is good. No food is bad. No, you don't have to deprive yourself. When people say, Jared, I feel like I should avoid carbs to lose weight, is literally right up there with someone saying, oh, I feel like I shouldn't paint my walls for fat loss. It's it's not even related. You can totally eat you can totally eat carbs and lose weight. Right? It's not how the game works. Thinking that certain foods store fat, thinking that sugar magically stores fat, and listening to every Netflix documentary about all this stuff is literally going to keep you trapped. Because it's crazy. If you listen to every single piece of advice out there, you're going to be told that everything is wrong. Carbs are fat. Carbs store fat. Carbs are bad. Well, then sugar is bad. But then fat somehow stores fat. But then somehow too much protein in and of itself or animal products make you fat. So now you can't eat anything. Well, but then certain people say eating nothing magically stores fat. Or like, let's say like, oh, well, certain times of the day store fat. So you need to do fasting. But then you'll hear other sources that say, well, when you break a fast, then you'll store fat. But then you'll hear some people talk about like hormones, like you can't have your insulin spiked. But if you don't have insulin elevations, you'll die. It's called being type 1 diabetic. Like, do you see the problem here? Every single piece of fat loss advice that is very rigid and strict about a very end all be all answer has some opposition somewhere that has data to show that. So this is why you have to be very careful who you listen to, what you apply, and what you run with. Because at the end of the day, if you listen to everyone, you're going to fuck yourself. So this is why if you're on my podcast, I would highly suggest listening to what I'm saying, because not only is it true, but we have results to prove it on top of it where you don't have to make your life shitty. You have to understand this. It's not about just losing the weight. It's about how you lose the weight in the state in which you achieve it. You could have the most optimized program in the world, but if your life is a living hell because of it, you can't go on date night, you can't eat your favorite foods, and you're one of those like weight loss psychopaths, that does not sound like the life I want to live, so I'm not going to partake. I would rather take longer getting to my goal and enjoy the ride than get to the goal 3 months faster and then hate the ride. Only you can answer that, but that's what we're teaching here. Okay, so be sure to take your fat loss advice in this century. If you have no idea like what that is or where to start with that, I have in the description, I have an entirely free course. It's called the Fat Loss Checklist. It's down in the description, totally free. It's an email course. And if you're like not sure where to get started and you want to hear like the full version of like all this stuff, I would start there. But otherwise, that's our fundamental number 2. Fundamental number 3 is it's the name of the podcast. And fundamental number 3 is dieting from the inside out. So the harsh reality is most of the problems keeping you from losing weight, living your best life, and feeling amazing cannot be fixed with more weight loss. Here's what I mean by that. If you struggle with binge eating, emotional eating, sabotage, consistency issues, not being disciplined, knowing what to do but not doing it, have mental health issues as it relates to weight loss, like the more weight you lose, the worse your headspace gets. All of those kind of things. Let's say you struggle with massive food guilt when you go out to eat, or let's say you struggle with sabotage where you get off a little bit and you like ruin everything and spin out of control. The issue with that is you cannot solve those problems with more weight loss. Okay, think of if you struggle with your let's say binge eating or like emotional eating, for example. If I say let's do more workouts, does that fix the problem? Probably not. If I say okay, let's just count calories or take calories lower, does that fix the problem? Well, no. If you can't be consistent for more than 2 days, does me adding a bigger workout routine make that fixed? Well, not at all. This is the problem. So when it comes to this stuff, you wanting to lose weight is what's triggering these issues, right? It's like you only have consistency issues with working out, not with brushing your teeth. You know what to do, but don't do it when you go to lose weight and go to the gym and eat right, but you don't struggle with that with going to the job you hate, right? So these issues only are triggered by weight loss, but we cannot fix these issues with more weight loss. Ironically, this is why the podcast is called Dieting from the Inside Out. This is why inside our coaching program, our very first stage is called Dieting from the Inside Out. And it's why I'm telling you right now, listening to this, you need to diet from the inside out. This is why how we do that is we have to intertwine inner work and properly strategize within the physical work on the other side of this. Now, this is a really long conversation and it's really individual based on whatever issue you have. So this is why if you're like, I struggle with binge eating, I struggle with emotional eating or sabotage or whatever it is, I would either say go absorb some of the content I have on that where I give the exact strategies. I have podcasts on it, smaller form content, or to be honest, that's one of the biggest reasons people sign up for coaching, and I'll leave a link below for that. But this is why it's fundamental number 3 is you need to diet from the inside out. We need to handle your binge eating now. We need to handle your emotional eating now. We need to handle the constant state of self-sabotage. Every time you lose 10 pounds, you gain 15 back. We need to handle that now. Because if you wait until you're like, I'm going to lose the weight first, that's what everyone does. That's literally like a drug addict saying, well, I'm going to get high really, really quickly. Then I'm going to get clean. It's like, if they keep doing that, they're always going to end up back to where they started. We have to take a break from weight loss and press pause on it. That doesn't mean you're going to gain astronomical amounts of weight back. This means we're going to fix your inner foundation. I know that sounds airy-fairy. I know that sounds hopey-dopey, but it's tactical as fuck. And this is the key to never struggling with weight loss ever again. Because if you don't fix your foundation, you are going to end up wrecking whatever progress you do make. Like I would ask you, would you buy a house? Like, let's say you're going to go rent or buy a house if it did not have a foundation, or if you were having your dream home built and there was no foundation put in, do the builders have a right to put the walls and the ceiling up? And everyone says no. It's because without a foundation, everything will come crumbling down. The same thing happens here with your journey and your transformation. If you struggle with binge eating, emotional eating, sabotage, knowing what to do but not doing it, can't be consistent, can't be disciplined, feel guilty as fuck around food, your mental health is trashed as it applies to weight loss, all of that stuff, I would say, do you actually have a right to lose weight? And everyone that's listening to this should say, well, no. This is exactly why, guys, in our coaching program, our weight loss stage, we call it the Fat Loss Accelerator, is actually in stage 2. In stage 1, we fix all of these issues, because if we get someone to lose weight, it doesn't matter, because then their binge eating is going to ruin it and they're wasting time, energy, and money. So I'm giving you literally the secrets. Why don't put weight loss in your own metaphorical stage 2? Fix your inner game shit in stage 1. If you don't know how to do that, shoot me a message and we'll talk. But I'm telling you right now, until you fix your inner game stuff as it applies to weight loss, you'll never get on the other side with this. It's just how the game works. So that's why fundamental number 3 is dieting from the inside out. And lastly, fundamental number 4 is sustainability over everything. Here's the truth. If what you're doing is not sustainable, it's not worth doing. If the avenue is unsustainable, the result will be unsustainable. If you can only do the shit you're doing right now for like a year, 6 months, couple years, it's not worth doing at all, because you're going to end up falling off and regressing everything. I'm telling you, I want you to start looking at your weight loss journey like most people should look at their other areas in life, like their career, their education, and things like that. It's the biggest difference ever. It makes the biggest world of difference, because if what you're doing is not sustainable, I don't care what results you get in the short term, you will always ruin it all and gain all your weight back and get back to square one, if not in a worse place. But for some reason, there's this really common misconception that is this. A lot of people will claim and say, well, I'm going to like lose the weight and get to where I want to be first, like really quickly, like unsustainably, then I'm going to switch to a more sustainable approach. That doesn't work. Show me one other area in your life that's actually practical with the mass populace. It doesn't. You don't cheat all the way through high school and then get your shit together in college. You don't cheat all the way through college and get your shit together with your real job. You don't be a cheating whore all the way through your dating career and then like be married to like one person. I would even go so far in that analogy. Would you be with someone who was like that? If someone said, hey, I'm going to cheat on you all while we're dating, but then once we get married, I'm going to get my act together. You wouldn't. There's no world where we get to do it like that. That otherwise, to be honest, if that was the case with weight loss, we would all get shredded overnight by doing lots of drugs. And then once we get shredded, we get off the drugs. But like that doesn't even exist. So you have to understand that if you want to keep your results forever, you have to be able to have some semblance of habits you can maintain forever. Honest to God, that is the only solution. To be honest, I don't like it either. I would love it if we could all like do something stupid for the next like 14 days and get ungodly shredded and be able to keep it. That, of course, that's the dream, but that's not a reality. It's just not how physiology works or practicality works. And to be honest, the other side of that spectrum is we would lose it fast, just as fast, because everything works in polarities. If you could lose all your weight really, really quickly, drastically in like a couple days, well, then you would gain it all back in like a couple hours. Right? It works on both sides of the equation. It takes a while to lose weight, but then it also takes a while to gain weight. To gain weight, you have to do some not great shit for an extended period of time as well. Right? This is why people go on vacation, eat like an asshole, drink like a fish, not exercise at all, and they look the exact same when they come back. It's why this game takes a while on both sides. If you could get really, really unsustainable results really quickly, and then that's why you gain it all back really, really quickly. It's just how the game works. So if what you're doing is not sustainable, it's not worth doing. This is where I always tell everyone that your weight loss journey should be exactly like brushing your teeth. That's the vibe it should be. Because here's the truth. You made the decision to brush your teeth till the day you die a long time ago. It doesn't, because you never say, oh, I'll start over Monday. You've made the decision. As long as you have teeth, you are going to brush them till the day you die. And even then when you have dentures, you're going to brush those too. Because you want to have good oral health, no cavities, good looking teeth, fresh breath till the day you die. So you do the most minimalist approach possible with brushing your teeth, 2 minutes in the morning, 2 minutes in the evening, and that's it, right? So I want you to approach this the same way. What habits can you do till you die? I'm not saying you're going to have to track calories till you die. I'm not saying you're going to have to do whatever till you die, because you're not going to have to be like losing weight till you die. But I'm saying is the foundational habits you are putting in, you will have to maintain till you die. This is why the fundamentals are so important. Having proper expectations till you die, having normal principle-based weight loss strategies that are in this century, enjoying all your favorite foods in moderation, not going to extremes, things like that. And then at the end of the day, still fixing your inner game as it applies to weight loss and not suppressing that stuff. So that's why fundamental number 4 is sustainability over everything. And my friends, that is it. Those are the 4. We're keeping it simple. I was trying to keep this episode under 30 minutes, and we're at 30 minutes and 31 minutes right now. So I will not keep you any longer. Those are the 4 fundamentals. Number 1 is your expectations. Number 2 is fat loss nutrition in this century. Number 3 is dieting from the inside out, the name of the show. And number 4, sustainability over everything. Now, first of all, I really, really appreciate you being here. Thank you so much and for sticking around. Now, I do have a lot of cool stuff for you right now in the description. Number 1 is I will have the link to that Canva PDF I was telling you about. Actually, I was looking off of it for my notes for today's show. But if you want to have like a hand, like literally, like you could even print this thing out, an actual PDF with all of these four fundamentals on it with kind of like explanations. I'll leave that in the description below. It's totally free. You don't even have to put in an email address. It's just, I'll have the PDF link in there. But then I also have some really cool other links in there, because a lot of times when I get talking about like some of the specifics on fat loss advice in this century and binge eating and food relationships, a lot of times people get really confused and they're like, I don't even know where to start with that. So at the end of that PDF, I literally have hyperlinked a handful of my best trainings, like how to calculate your calories without starving or doing weird formulas, how to stop binge eating, how to fix your relationship with food, how to double your calories and not gain weight, and like the science of sabotage and how to stop it. So I have like all of that inside that free PDF. So you'll want to check that out in the description. I also have links to my fat loss community. It's called Fat Loss Simplified, because I'm fully convinced everyone needs a home base. Everyone needs, if you want to get massively successful, you need to get around people who are doing that shit themselves, who are winning. You can fix half of whatever issue by dropping a person into a community who is doing that stuff. If you're not motivated, hang around motivated people. If you're not making progress, hang around people who are making progress. If you aren't fulfilled, get around people who are fulfilled. And all of a sudden things rub off. And that's what I have in my Fat Loss Simplified community. I want it to be your home base where you can go to get love, get support, get help, and get your questions answered, and have a spot where you're not alone with this stuff. So that I'll leave a link there for you. Also, I have, like I mentioned it earlier, but I do have my free fat loss course. If you're like, I want the A to Z on this thing. So I have a fat loss course called the Fat Loss Checklist that'll explain A to Z, all the important things with like nuts and bolts fat loss that'll really help. And then lastly, I do have a special coaching link. So if you're listening to this and you're like, man, I just feel like I could need help streamlining this. I don't want to have to figure this out on my own. I've been trying to figure this out on my own and it's not working. Well, based on that, coaching actually may be a really good fit for you. But we don't work with just anyone, and we have a process to like interview people who want to apply for coaching, because we want to make sure you qualify and we want to make sure that you're a good fit for what we have to offer and that it makes sense on both sides, and then go over options and things like that. So because you are a podcast listener, I do have some special goodies for anyone who does apply for coaching and gets accepted. I have a whole bunch of extra stuff for you just because you came from the podcast. So I will leave a link there, a special link that tells me you're from the podcast, where when you and my team talk about to see if this is a good fit, they can go over some of the other stuff for you as well. But otherwise, I know that was long-winded. I really appreciate you being here. Be sure and subscribe and leave a review to the podcast. So whatever you're listening to it on, be sure and subscribe. But if it lets you, if you're listening to this on like Spotify or iTunes or whatever you're listening to it on, if it lets you write a review, it would mean a ton to me. That is how we get this podcast to climb through the ranks and really do some cool stuff and change some people's lives, because this doesn't do any good if it just stays here or just in our ears. And to be honest, like that's my one ask is from this podcast is if you got value out of this, share it with one person. That's all I'm asking. I do this for free. I'm giving you guys the best info that I have to solve your problems and make your life better. The only ask I have is to either share this with someone, whether you just say, hey, Sarah, I know you're struggling. This helped me a lot. Post it on your story, whatever it is, it would mean a ton. But otherwise, I appreciate you. Stay tuned for the next episode, and I will talk to you next time.